Jai Anilo Premadano Karamakacho Jai Gopi Jana Vallabha Jai Girivarade Jai Gopi Jana Vallabha Jaya Girivarade Jaya just because of Krishna language, the A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada ki. Do you chant these verses responsibly?
Sometimes we don't even chant.
Even the original person doesn't chant them?
Sometimes. Sometimes I have a page wrong.
Oh, you don't even write them on the board? Yeah, it would be hard to chant if you didn't have them in front of you. Well, I'll chant. These are prose verses. Om Jnanitimarandasa Janam Jana Sarakaya Chaksuramidatam Jena Tasmai Sri Gurave Namaha Sri Chagannamanubhistam Stapitam Jena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadamayam Dadati Swapandantikam Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya
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 Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 5, Chapter 24, Text number 19. No evaitat shakshatkaro bhumidhanasya yatat bhagavati yashesha jivanikayanam jivaputatma bhute paramatmani vasudeve tirtatami patra upapane paraya shadaya paramadhara samahita manasha Sampratipatitasya shakshat apavaragadvarasya yad bila nilaya aishvaryam. No, not, eva, indeed, etat, this, shakshatkaraha, the direct result, bhuvidanasya, of contribution of land, yat, which, tat, that, bhagavati, unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Shesha Jiva Nikayanam, of unlimited numbers of living entities, Jiva Bhuta Atma Bhute, who is the life and the super soul, Parama Atmani, the Supreme Regulator, Vasudeve, Lord Vasudev Krishna, Tirthatame, who is the best of all places of pilgrimage, Patre, the most worthy recipient, Upapapane, having approached, Paraya, by the topmost, Shraddhaya, faith, Parama Adara, with great respect, Samahita Manasa, with an attentive mind, Sampratipaditasya, which was given, Shakshat, directly, Apavargadvarasya, the gate of liberation, Yat, which, Bila Nilaya, of Bila Svarga, the imitation heavenly planets, Aishvaryam, the opulence, Translation by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. This verse does not have a purport, but the verse itself is like a verse in purport. So we will try to speak about it. My dear King Bali Maharaj, my dear King Bali Maharaj donated all his possessions to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vamanadev. But one should certainly not conclude that he achieved his great worldly opulence in Bila Svarga as a result of his charitable disposition. The Supreme Personality of Godhead, who is the source of life for all living entities, lives within everyone as the friendly supersoul. And under his direction, a living entity enjoys or suffers in the material world. Greatly appreciating the transcendental qualities of the Lord, Bali Maharaj offered everything at his lotus feet. His purpose, however, was not to gain anything material, but to become a pure devotee. For a pure devotee, the door of liberation is automatically opened. One should not think that Bali Maharaj was given so much material opulence merely because of his charity. When one becomes a pure devotee in love, he may also be blessed with a good material position by the will of the Supreme Lord. However, one should not mistakenly think that the material opulence of a devotee is the result of his devotional service. The real result of devotional service is the awakening of pure love for the Supreme Personality of Godhead, which continues under all circumstances. Vanchakalpatarubhaischa kripa sindhu titanam bhavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo namo namaha. So here we are reading the narration about the great devotee of the Lord, Maharaj Bali. Bali Maharaj is one of the 12 Mahajanas. Mahajana Yena Kata Sapanta. We should follow in the footsteps of a person like Bali Maharaj because he can show us how to please the Supreme Personality of Godhead. There are two principles which are most important of all to follow. One is to do everything which is favorable for pleasing Krishna, and the other is to avoid anything which is unfavorable for the Lord's pleasure. So, in the case of Bali Maharaj, he acted in such a way that very uncharacteristically, in a very uncharacteristic way, he acted by rejecting his guru. Normally one can never do this. In fact, it is said that to disobey the guru's orders is tantamount to spiritual suicide. And yet he did it, and he was glorified. Because his guru violated the most basic fundamental principle, which is that everything we do should be done for the pleasure of Vishnu. And therefore he rejected him. And Another thing he did, which was very uncharacteristic in one sense, is that he was willing to sacrifice his own life. Now, one is easily able to sacrifice something which is dispensable, disposable, easily. We give money, we give our time, we give our intelligence, we give our words, but how many are prepared to give their life? He did. After giving up everything in the universe which he possessed, that's another point, that no one can ever equal the charity given by Maharaj Bali, because where will there ever be such a wealthy person who can claim proprietorship over the whole universe? Even Brahma cannot make such a claim, because after creating the material universe, he creates so many living entities, and the universe is divided amongst them. But Bali Maharaj conquered the whole universe. He conquered the heavenly planets, took the position of Indra, and ruled. And yet, without any hesitation, he gave it all away in charity. This is really something. It is not so easy to give everything away in charity. A householder can, with great difficulty, give 50% in charity, and only after unlimited Srimad Bhagavatam classes to the effect, and countless urgings of the authorities may he do so. But here is a person who didn't hesitate to give 100%. And even then, when the Lord said, it's still not enough, he said, then take me. And actually, that was his desire all along. As this verse clearly indicates, the position achieved by Bali Maharaj was not done through giving of charity. It means that normally one gives charity as a type of punya, or pious activity. In other words, it is said that according to the amount you give in charity, you get so much in return in this lifetime or the next. And so we see that it is the custom of wealthy persons to give in charity, because in this way they perpetuate their wealthy position into the next life. But his purpose was certainly not anything so mundane. He was thinking, how can I capture God? And so, with great intelligence, and it was told to him that you are so fortunate. His grandfather is Prahlad Maharaj. His grandfather came there to see Bali Maharaj's position, because when he had given everything up, the whole universe, having promised to give 3 steps of land, and having given everything up in 2 steps, the Lord bound up Bali Maharaj. And his grandfather and well-wisher, Bhakti Prahlad Maharaj, came and saw him in this position and thought, you are so fortunate. So normally one doesn't seem to be fortunate being bound up in this way. But Prahlad Maharaj, being extremely intelligent, could understand what was about to happen. And then Bali Maharaj threw himself down upon the lotus feet of the Lord and said, now place your last step upon my head. Yasyaham anugrinami harishye tadhamam shanai. This verse from the Bhagavatam's 88th chapter of the 10th canto is repeatedly the theme of the first volume of Srila Prabhupada Lilamrita, A Lifetime in Preparation. Its meaning is that when the Lord shows special favor to his devotee, then he takes away all his material possessions. And in Srila Prabhupada's life of preparation, this took place. One by one, each thing was stripped away from Srila Prabhupada. And Prabhupada said, told me personally, that sometimes when he saw how things were being taken away, he would wonder what was the purpose of the Lord. And he said sometimes the difficulties were so severe that he wondered how he would persevere. For example, after translating the entire Bhagavad Gita with all commentaries, the whole manuscript was stolen and there was no copy. You can just imagine what that is like, to pour out one's heart in translation for years and then have it completely taken away. So then later Prabhupada said that after it all, he realized that each one of these trials had become a great spiritual asset for him. So the materialists calculate fortune by how much they get, and the spiritualists calculate fortune by how much is taken away. Just like I had some experience of this in 1976, when Srila Prabhupada, I was in charge of a very big preaching program, and so many complaints came because it was such a big program that it practically had everybody, anyway, whatever it had to do. I won't say too much about it, but all I can say is that there was a lot of disturbance. So Prabhupada said, now I'm taking all of this away from you. And there were so many, so much facilities, opulences, followers, so many things. I take it all away from you. And you should go and preach in China. And if you don't want to go to preach in China, you can sit in Mayapur and chant Hare Krishna and repeat. So when I went out of the room and everybody heard about this, they all said, you are the most fortunate person of all. And I thought, how is this possible? I'm fortunate. Everything's been taken away. But that was the fortune. Because in such a position, it becomes very easy to surrender unto Krishna. As long as we have so many possessions, so much wealth, so much power, so many things, then we think it is very difficult. I have so much to look after and so many responsibilities and duties. But when everything is taken away, then we understand that actually I have only one wealth, and that is the lotus feet of the Lord. So although Bali Maharaj had the wealth of an entire universe, he thought it no more important than a heap of straw. And rather he thought that the real wealth that I want are the two lotus feet of the Lord. And he achieved that position. So, Prabhupada states further in the verse that when one becomes a pure devotee in love, he may also be blessed with a good material position by the will of the Supreme Lord. But one should not mistakenly think that the material opulence of a devotee is the result of his devotional service. The real result of devotional service is the awakening of pure love for the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So, sometimes we see devotees receive so much good fortune, and we should not ever be envious of that. We have to understand that either by their past, it depends. If a person is not a pure devotee and they get such material fortune, it is the result of past karma. In other words, they had good karma and now they have received the result for it. But in the case of a pure devotee who receives opulence, it has nothing to do with the laws of karma. Because a pure devotee does not act or be affected by any law of karma. He is directly under Krishna's jurisdiction. If Krishna wishes, as he did with Prabhupada, everything was taken away. Srila Prabhupada's position was so humble that at one point he did not know how he would be able to get his next rupee. He said he lived from day to day. But still the order of his spiritual master burned within his heart and kept him going. He would go back and forth between Vrindavan and Delhi for getting his books ready with the idea of the mission of going to the Western world with these books. And Prabhupada's position was such that at one point, you know the story, that he was gored by a wild animal who gored Prabhupada in the side. And he was lying on the road and there was no one there to help him. So it is practically unthinkable how this can happen, but it is because Krishna places the greatest devotees under the most severe tests. It is not that a person is fortunate when he's not tested. He's more fortunate when he's more tested. And in fact, the greatest tests are saved for the greatest devotees, because only they can pass the tests in Krishna consciousness. A lesser person would give up when the difficulty becomes too much, or he would take shelter of the material energy. But a pure devotee will never ever do this. No matter how much they are pushed, a pure devotee will not compromise the principles of Krishna consciousness. So Bali Maharaj was like that. He was such a person that he was tested to the maximum degree, and he didn't hesitate to do his duty. There was a movie once that I saw. I used to go to these movies to see very famous old-time movies before meeting Prabhupada. So there was a movie called Children of God. And in this movie they show very heroic persons. I remember this a little, somewhat vividly. Of course, in our eyes, these persons were not saintly. But there was no doubt that they were heroic in the sense that they lived out their destinies. And they did not hesitate to do what was destined for them to do. So, in a sense, I think that that example has to be seen and followed by all of us. That we are called upon to do actually very heroic activities in the cause of the Sankirtan movement. And it is not easy. It is not easy to go out day after day as a Sankirtan devotee, for example. But it is a very, very heroic activity. It is not easy to be a temple manager or a leader in the society. But one should do it with great determination. And that heroic behavior will give strength to so many others, and it will be very much pleasing to Krishna. So, according to what you are, just like you may be a mother with a child, to take nice care of that child, to not become impatient, to not become intolerant, to continue to give the child all love and care, that is like acting like a heroine. A wife remains dutiful to the husband, faithful to the husband to the wife. This is a heroic activity in this age. In other words, we each have so many opportunities according to the duties which are ascribed to us. And if we live out those duties, remembering Krishna, remembering that this life, Yudhisthira Maharaj, Vasudev was preaching to Kamsa, remember this? Don't kill your sister, because the only thing that lives after you is your reputation, and what will people say? So we devotees should think like this, that what will live after us is our reputation. So what will people say if we act in the wrong way? even if you think that you are not such a significant devotee, that is not actually a fact. We should understand who is significant. Significant in the eyes of our Guru, significant in the eyes of Krishna, and even a person, just like now in our society we glorify Jayananda Prabhu. He was not, at least from in a regular sense of the way, not more special than necessarily any one of us sitting here. He was a devotee like any one of us. But because he was so dutiful, and he was really dutiful, now he's glorified by everybody in this society all over the world. So we should not think that no one is seeing me. So many are seeing us, no matter who we may be. Everybody sitting here is seen by many, 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 dozens and dozens and even hundreds of devotees. And Krishna is seen, and Guru is seen. And so our behavior, our activities have to be exemplary. Yat yat acharati shestas tatat teve taro janaha sayat paramam kurute lokas taranuvartate. The exemplary behavior of a person will become the basis for others' good actions. So unless one is a devotee of the Lord, they will not act properly. Harava bhaktasya kato muhadgana manoratana shatita avatobahi. If someone is not a devotee, then actually their behavior will ultimately prove faulty, and therefore it is said they have no good qualities. Because what is the value of so many good qualities if someone doesn't use them for Krishna? Just like what is the value of a jewel on the head of a serpent? It may be a very priceless jewel, but if it's on the head of a serpent, no one can appreciate it so much. So even if someone has qualities like heroism, strength, fortitude, beauty, so many things, wealth, but if they don't use it for Krishna, then who ultimately appreciates these qualities? Just like Hiranyakasipu or Ravana, they had strength, they had influence, they had wealth, they had Vedic knowledge, they were very, very, very knowledgeable. They performed so many sacrifices, yajnas, but the whole world despises them. They're hated throughout history, yet they had so many good qualifications. And Ajamil, had all bad qualities, yet he's glorified. Because ultimately, he did what a devotee does. He chanted the holy name of the Lord. Which goes to show that verse in Bhagavatam, that if one chants even one time the holy name of Krishna, then it is enough to counteract so many sins that one could have performed. And it is to be understood that just by chanting one time sincerely, a person has already done all Vedic sacrifices, gone to all places of pilgrimage, studied the Vedas nicely, given in charity, etc., etc. Of course, remember that this means chanting properly, because you cannot take advantage of such statements about the holy name and think that now I have to do nothing more because I'm already so exalted. And then you'll fall down if you think like that. So, Bali Maharaj is powerful, very powerful, and yet he feels insecure. And we are not very powerful, yet sometimes we feel a sense of security. So there's a very good verse that the gopis speak. O best of the Vrishnis, your lotus-like hand, which holds the hand of the goddess of fortune, grants fearlessness to those who approach your feet out of fear of material existence. O lover, please place this wish-fulfilling lotus hand on our heads. The gopis want to gain the shelter of Krishna's lotus hand. And in fact, this is the way a devotee wants, just like Bhakta Prahlad. He wants the lotus hand of Lord Nrsingadev upon his head, because he doesn't feel secure. We are always in a position of so much type of fear, of danger of material existence. But we should understand that the real danger is that we don't have Krishna's shelter. If we get Krishna's shelter, then fear personified runs away. So we have nothing to fear. Just like Dhruva Maharaj, when he met with death, it is described that he stepped upon the head of death and entered into the Vaikuntha spaceship. So, what should we fear? We should fear displeasing Guru, displeasing the Vaishnavas. This should be our fear. Because if that happens, then how can we get shelter from Krishna? Our wealth will not protect us, because it can go in a second. Wealth comes and wealth goes. She's Lakshmi and she's Chanchala. She's flickering. She doesn't stay. You can say, well, she'll stay at least in this lifetime. Okay, she may. And then you'll be a pauper in your next life. You'll be pinching pennies. So it's very short-lived, this type of thing. But the wealth of a devotee, here it says, the real result of devotional service is awakening pure love for the Supreme Lord, which continues under all circumstances. Because it's under the control of Devi Prakriti, the internal energy of the Lord. We are now under the control of Maya Prakriti, but Devi is the divine energy of the Lord. So we have to choose which of the two energies to be under the control of. Maya or Yoga Maya, internal energy, Srimati Radharani. So to get Radharani's protection, to get Yoga Maya's protection, it requires very determined effort in spiritual life, as Bali Maharaj showed. Being prepared to sacrifice everything. This is the definition of a devotee, one who is willing to sacrifice everything for Krishna. Not 10%, not 50%, but 100%. When you turn your back on material existence and you walk straight ahead, following the order of Guru and Krishna, that is devotional service. And everything else is simply faltering attempts at learning how to be a devotee. So if we know what the goal is, just like I recall, when I was contemplating joining the Krishna Consciousness movement, I thought I will wait a few months more. But my friend, who later was initiated as Vishnu Chan, he said to me, "Are you sure that you're going to join?" I said, "Yes." He said, "Well, then if you're sure that you're going to join, then you might as well just go ahead and do it now." So I thought that makes good sense. So we joined. But I was going to put it off. So if you know what the goal is, then why don't you just go ahead and do it? What is the use of fooling around? Just like brahmacharis sometimes keep a bank account, of some money that they had before they joined, just in case. In case of what? In case what? One day you're going to die. What is the case? You might as well go and become a pure devotee and go back to Godhead. We should get on with the business. Everybody should consider not anything in between, but just fully surrender and do everything necessary to develop love of God. Because life is very short, and you can get trapped. If you take some in-between course, you can be trapped in so many ways. And therefore, Srila Prabhupada pushed the devotees of ISKCON to fully surrender. During Prabhupada's time, everybody fully surrendered. Why? Because we were very confident seeing the example of Srila Prabhupada. Now we are not as confident because we don't see that example. The example is there to be seen, but we, don't always see it because we're like owls, and even though the sun is risen, our eyes are shut, so it's very dark here. The sun is blazing in the sky, and the owl is there with his eyes closed, saying it's dark. So it's not as if Prabhupada just happened to appear for 11 years for anyone who was around at the time. If that's the case, then what's the point of, Prabhupada's centennial? What's the point of Prabhupada's words being the law books for 10,000 years? If he's just a decade avatar, he just came for those between 1966 and 1977. And anyone else who came later, it's not important. Now we have new examples. We have the examples of compromisation. But Prabhupada didn't compromise. We saw his example and we thought, that's what Krishna consciousness is. If you want to be Krishna conscious, you do what he did. And he said that, Sarva Dharmam Pradityaja, Mame Kam Saranam Vaja, Aham Tvam Sarva Papyo, Mokshasam. Just give up everything and surrender unto me, and I'll protect you. Every example in the Bhagavatam of all the Mahabharata devotees is on this one same point. It's the final teaching in Bhagavad Gita. The Bhagavatam takes up where the Gita left off. It goes all the way through. Then where the Bhagavatam left off, then the Chaitanya Chaitamrita starts. This is our line. This is the line that you're in. If you want it, there's a lot of other lines. There's the Christian line. You can go become a Christian. They have very good arrangement for compromisation. And it's religious, and it's God conscious. Or you can become a Varnashrami. You can do Varnashram Dharma. That's also there in the Vedas. But Devi Varnashram is different. Devi Varnashram is explained by Krishna in the Bhagavad Gita that each person, by performance of their occupational duty, can satisfy the Lord. But the purpose is clear, to satisfy the Lord. It's not to satisfy our senses. Nowhere, anywhere, do the pure Vaishnava scriptures ever preach compromisation. Because it's against the principle of bhakti. Bhakti means to please Krishna's senses, Krishna's mind. That's bhakti. And anything else is something different. It's Jnana Mishra Bhakti, Karma Mishra Bhakti. But Sudha Bhakti means one thing. How can Krishna be pleased? Two rules. Do everything which is favorable to Krishna and avoid everything which is not favorable to Krishna. So, Prahlad Maharaj has spoken these words, that one may possess wealth, an aristocratic family, beauty, austerity, education, sensory expertise, luster, influence, physical strength, diligence, intelligence, and even mystic yoga power. But I think that even by all these qualifications, one cannot satisfy the Supreme Personality of Godhead. However, one can satisfy the Lord simply by devotional service. Gajendra did this, and thus the Lord was satisfied with him. So, we should understand that only by devotional service can Krishna be satisfied, and not by anything else. And if we only do 10%, 20% of satisfaction of Krishna, we're going to just have to begin in our next life where we left off. It's not going to end. So you might as well just try for 100%. Go on trying for 100%. It doesn't matter if you fail. Krishna says there is no loss. Very nice point. There's no loss. Neyavikramanasastri pratyavayona vidyate salpamapiyasa dharmasya trayate matobhayat. There's no loss. There's no diminution. That even if you fail, it doesn't matter. Nectar Devotion makes this point very clear. That even if a person tries to surrender more than they're capable of surrendering, and falls down, still there's no loss. But if you never make the effort, if you never try, if you never risk, Prabhupada, on the point of risking, Prabhupada said, I have chosen the GBC because those are the persons who risk the most to serve Guru and Krishna. So to risk everything for the satisfaction of Krishna, just like Bali Maharaj is doing here. This is the way Krishna becomes pleased. Not to play it safe and make calculations and surrender partially. That will never do. And Krishna actually will, if you are sincere, Krishna is going to understand your tricks. And he will just arrange it so that you have to gradually be pushed to the point of full surrender. So, don't be fearful. See the example of Bali Maharaj. Take strength from his example. Not only his example, Prahlad Maharaj's example. Not only his, Dhruva Maharaj's example. Not only his, all the persons of the Bhagavatam. Every single one of them. Bhishma, look at Bhishma, how heroic he is. You know, how he kept his vow of brahmacharya. He was a Kshatriya. He should have married. He's the most powerful person practically in the whole universe. He could have married, had so many wives, so many children, but just for the sake of satisfying a purpose of keeping an arrangement within the family, he took a vow, never get married. And he kept it. If you want to see how to keep a vow, you see the person of Bhishma. Study his character and nature. So we're taking vows. We vow to chant every day 16 rounds. We vow to follow the 4 regulative principles. So we should be like Bhishma. And if you say, well, I'm not like Bhishma, I'm just a Kali Yuga reject, and I don't have the qualification of Bhishma, but neither you have to do what Bhishma did. Our, sacrifice and penance is just according to our Kali Yuga rejected quality. It's not very much. Chanting 16 rounds is not so difficult. Following these 4 principles is not so difficult. And if you do these strictly, but not with a poor quality, with the effort to do them in a qualitative way, to chant very, very nicely, then you'll get the results. Krishna will be very kind to you, and he'll take everything away from you and make it very easy to surrender. So every day we're saying, Hare Krishna, Krishna, take it all away. That's what it means. Oh Lord, how can I serve you? And then Krishna says, I'll show you. I'll take everything away and make it real easy. So when we should pray like that, not that we say, Hare Krishna, Krishna, let me serve you, but please let me also keep everything I have at the same time. That won't, you're making it difficult. You're like a person who wants to walk a long distance on Padayatra, but he's got all of his possessions. He brings all his household paraphernalia because, it might get cold, or this may happen, that may happen. So, do not be fearful. We should see the example of Srila Prabhupada, see the example of Prabhupada's followers, and be detached, be renounced, and chant Hare Krishna, and practice Krishna consciousness. Give the world Krishna consciousness. Preach this mission very strongly. Don't have any other business. Let us simply go forward and do everything that Prabhupada wanted. And Prabhupada said if everyone would cooperate, in 18 days we could take over the world. We haven't done, in 18 years, we haven't got very much territory yet. Because we're not so cooperative, because we all have our own agendas. But if we make Prabhupada's agenda our agenda, then it becomes very easy. Our movement will prosper very nicely. So, anybody have any comments or questions?
For the householder, we've seen that maybe that the mentality of not wanting to keep any material possessions or not do anything in the material sense of gaining materially can result in sometimes problems with providing for family or a household like that, and instead relying on government handouts.
Oh, we don't like the pension.
Stuff like that. So.
Government pension is not Prabhupada's policy. Of course, there may be some situations where the government actually pays to do some service. That's different. That's a different position. Of course, some people have the opinion that, well, we're Brahmins, so the government should support us. For some reason, Prabhupada didn't seem to take that position. As far as a householder goes, it depends upon their advancement. If they're very, very advanced, detached, then they can live with very little. But if they're not so detached, then they have to earn, but they should strictly give 50%. If you earn money and you don't give 50%, then you become encumbered by material attachments. That's the result. You remain attached within your heart, and then you can't love Krishna. So it's pointless, it's futile. So Prabhupada appreciated when a householder could support his family. He took that as a responsible sign. And but we should understand that a householder's advancement depends upon his ability to give in charity, not only to his family members, but to others as well. So if you can't give 50% of your money as a household, then you have to give 50% of your time. If not, you remain attached. And that makes it very difficult to love Krishna. So if you say it's very hard to do this, it's very hard to be a sannyasi also. It's not easy to be a sannyasi. We're all young people. We're coming from Western backgrounds. It's not easy to maintain sannyas vows. That's why so many haven't done it. So I don't think it's easy to remain a brahmachari. It's very difficult to remain a brahmachari. That's why so few do remain brahmachari. So each person has a difficult time or path, but it's through taking that difficulty that our hearts become purified. In other words, what is the purpose of human life? To perform tapasya. The problem is that we're brought up in the Western world where tapasya has a very nasty sound and a nasty conception. We tend to shy away from austerity. The whole society is based on doing away with austerity. You know, the whole automotive industries, everything becomes automated so you don't have to exert yourself too much. But actually there's purification by that difficulty. Want to pursue you can say another point.
Well, if he gives 50%, how sometimes it's practically impossible to keep the household going if you've got a mortgage.
That's right. Therefore, he should give his time if he can't give the money. And if he can't do either, he remains attached. That's the result. Then the last thing you do, if you're in that position, is you become very humble. And you realize, I can't give 50%. I can't give my time, so I'm really caught. I'm stuck. I'm stuck in the muck. And therefore, I'm looking forward for that day. First, this is what a householder in that position should do. He should lament bitterly his fate. And he should respect, like anything, those who are more free than himself. And he should pray and await that time when he can get out of that entangled position. He should not create a philosophy which justifies it and makes him feel that actually everything is quite all right. But he should actually realize that everything isn't all right because he's failed to do what he's meant to do. So he should, this will also purify him. He'll get purified. If he actually regrets and laments his inability to either give his wealth or his time, that lamentation will purify his heart. But instead we see too often that people become arrogant and justify the fact that they don't give the time, they don't give the money, and they practically ridicule those who do. So we should be careful not to create a philosophy that justifies irreligion. I'll give you one more. You go 3 times, you can say something. That covers it. I mean, that would cover it. I agree with you that it may not always be possible, but then the option then is a person should become really humble in that position. And if he becomes humble, do you know what will happen? All of those who are more detached, more fortunate, will bless him. They'll bless him because his humility will win their hearts. And that will be his offering practically, that humble attitude. And I have seen this, it actually works like that. And by grace of the Vaishnavas, that person will gradually be disentangled. Yes.
When you talk about 50%, that's after expenses.
I did not read that Back to Godhead article by Rohini Nanda Prabhu. And as far as I heard, there were many letters to the editor after the article came out, and most people did not agree with him. So, and I didn't read his article exactly. But all I know is that how a devotee should be free of guile. In other words, he should not scheme and calculate. So, we always heard that you're supposed to give 50% of what you earn. 25% was supposed to be used for your basic necessities. 25% was supposed to be banked for emergency. And 50% was supposed to be given in the service of the Vaishnavas. So if 25% was to be used in the covering of basic necessities, then where does the issue arise to do it after the necessities?
Just like on a practical point, that would almost be like, unless you lived in a grass hut, the way mortgages and everything are structured now.
You know why it's difficult now? Because this is the Kali Yuga, and the thing has become so bad now that people cannot do it. But that doesn't change the law of karma, which states that therefore you become entangled because you can't do this. This is the reason. In other words, as the Kali Yuga progresses, it becomes more and more difficult to execute religious duties. You're right. I don't deny that it's difficult.
So would that mean sort of saying that one it would be advisable not to purchase a house or anything like that because you can't, basically you can't.
Well, your rent or your mortgage payments probably are the same, so what difference does it make? At least one way you get an asset. By purchasing, at least you have an asset. I mean, generally rent and mortgage payments are not so different. That's why people buy houses. They say, what's the use? I'm just paying rent, I might as well own the house. But the point is not buying a house or paying rent. The point is that we're inability to do religious duties. The people can't do religious duties in the Kali Yuga. That is exactly what the Kali Yuga means. Therefore, we have to, take shelter of Krishna's holy name. How? In a humble state of mind. My dear Lord, I'm not able to do my duties properly as a householder. I can't give in charity. I have practically no time free to give my own time. Therefore, all I can do is call out to you and chant your holy name and beg you to please save me from this precarious position. Now, if you take that attitude, your chanting will be very effective. But we should not become arrogant and think, well, It's not, therefore I say we change the philosophy. Well, it doesn't mean like this, or it doesn't mean this, or this or that. It means exactly what it means, but it means that we're unfortunate. We're all unfortunate. It's not as if we can do what a sannyasi does. We don't live like sannyasis lived. Like, we're not any more exemplary in the sense as sannyasis. We're in the same unfortunate position. Everybody is. Therefore, we should see if a person has got the qualities of a devotee. Is he becoming humble? Is he becoming tolerant? Is he his faith increasing in Guru and Krishna? And then we'll know that actually it's all right. This is how you can tell. How do you know if someone's doing their duties? You can see the qualities of Vaishnavas developing within their heart. Advanced devotees will be able to detect that you're doing all right because the qualities are there. You're free from envy, malice, greed, all of these things, lust, are coming out of the heart. But if they're not coming away, then it means something's wrong.
There's a nice documentary, which is also supported in the Bhaktivedanta by Maharaj London, where it says that it's not by duties of sannyas or by household duties or meetings or any of those things, simply by the mercy of the Vaishnavas. The things.
And what attracts the mercy of a Vaishnava? A devotee's humble disposition is the most attractive quality of all. The humility of a Vaishnava. So humble and humiliated are close. There's a close connection between the two. Balamaraj became humiliated. And in that humble position, he's remembered. On the other hand, look at his daughter. His daughter took everything in the wrong way. Do you know what happened? Balamaraj's daughter originally saw Vamandev. And when she saw Vamandev, she thought that this is the most beautiful boy I have ever seen. Because he was like a little Brahmin boy. And she said that if I get a son, I pray that he be just like this boy, Vamandev. But later on, when she saw her father tied up with these ropes of Varuna, she felt so angry at this that she thought that if this child that I have ever, if I ever do get a child, then I will kill him. If he's ever like this, he should be killed. So in the future, that daughter of Balamaraj became Putana. And she got Krishna just like a son. She fed her breast milk, and by doing so, she tried to kill him. So two people saw the same thing. Balamaraj thought this is great fortune ultimately. He became humble. But she became bitter and angry, and she became Putana, who everyone hates. She became a demoness, whereas he became an exalted devotee. So the same act can bring about completely opposite reactions according to how a person's mind is fixed. So the difficulties of the Kali Yuga, which make it a strain to earn money, to be a sannyasi, to be a brahmachari, they can bring out completely opposite reactions in a person according to the person's nature and disposition. And that is a fact. Someone becomes stronger in sannyas, someone becomes weaker. Someone remains a brahmachari, someone falls down from brahmachari. Someone becomes more humbled and exalted as a householder, someone becomes more attached. The circumstances are more or less the same for all of us. It's only a question of degree, but they're more or less the same. Yet how we respond to the circumstances is very different according to the individual. So what will be the determining factor? How much faith we actually have in Guru and Sadhu. How much we put faith in the power of association. Association is so important. Who you associate with is all important. This was stated by Hiranyakasipu to Prahlad, telling him that who you associate with is all important, and it's clear that you've associated with the wrong person. Narada Muni. So if we associate with those who have good qualities, then that nature will come in us. Whereas if we associate with those who don't, then that's what's going to happen. You'll pick up the qualities they have. And that's exactly what the karmis do. They make associations. Social organizations, this organization, they're all, they're birds of a feather. So we see that people tend to congregate amongst similar natures. Now, if you're intelligent, you will try to think, who are the most saintly persons? They should become my associates. And then you should approach them saying, actually I'm a crow, but I want to be a swan. So please don't mind that a crow is amongst you, but help me to transform into a swan. Don't think, actually I'm a crow, and I should be with crows. We are not crows. The soul is a swan. So we should be in saintly association, sadhu sangha, sadhu sangha, sadhu shastra. We should seek out association. And this is the qualification of one who's a devotee. That you can tell a devotee by who he associates with. And you can tell who's a devotee by the fact that he gives up the association. Asat sangha tyag e Vaishnava achar. This is the Vaishnava achar. The Vaishnava behavior is that you give up the association of persons who are not devotees, which implies that you associate with those who are more advanced than you. The opposite is implied in it. You should seek out higher association. Always seek out higher association. Then you can be brought up to that level. It may be stressful because it may point out our shortcomings, but that's what we want. We want to see our shortcomings. If we don't see our shortcomings, then how will we advance? If we think, I'm okay, I'm fine, I'm on top of things, I know everything's going fine, we will never make advancement. If everything's going fine, why are you in the material world? Everything's not fine at all. Everything's very bad, actually. At least for me, I feel that way. You may be doing better, but I feel it's very bad. And therefore, the only thing my only hope is to find out devotees who are very advanced and to be with them closely. That's my only main concern, that I try to make arrangements to be with those who are very advanced. That's my safety, my shelter. I may be Prabhupada's disciple, but I want to be with the most advanced devotees in this world, because I need their association. I don't bank everything that I'm Prabhupada's disciple, so I got nothing to worry about. And I don't care if they're Prabhupada's disciples or not. I want to see if they're saintly. Then I want their association. It doesn't matter to me whose disciple they are. I look to the quality of a person. Are they humble? Are they very detached? Are they knowledgeable? I see the qualities which are described in Scripture, and I want to be with those people. Because then I'll get those qualities, somehow by their association. I don't have those qualities, but by being with them, I'll get those qualities. And I'm very careful to associate with people who don't have these qualities. I just keep some careful association. And if they're receptive, I may try to help them to some extent. But I don't just socialize and mix with them easily, because I don't want to get brought down. And this is the statement of Shastra. This is what a devotee should do. You should only associate with persons who are less advanced if they're actually able to be brought up by you to a higher level. That's why we associate with karmis for the purpose of trying to help them. And not only karmis, but even less advanced devotees. We should be very cautious in regard to associating with people if they're not developing the necessary qualities of a devotee. because of association, according to Hiranyakasipu, who's an authority in this matter. He's quoted, his verse is quoted. Association is so important. It can affect you so much. Mataji's have some. Yes.
Maharaj was saying how everybody should always be an example for others. We can understand that the standard of pure devotional service is very high. So sometimes we're in a situation where we know what we should be, but due to our conditioning, we're acting in a different way.
You have to beg, in that case, you have to beg Guru and Vaishnavas to change your nature. You actually have to beg them. They can do it. By their prayers and help, a person's nature can change. If you actually want to change the nature. If the desire is sincerely there within your heart to change and overcome the nature which has afflicted you through your whole life, you have to pray to the spiritual master and the Vaishnavas, please, please help me. And pray to Krishna. And it will happen. It will definitely change. It's just material energy. It can be manipulated to change.
And also, the other question was in regards to functioning in Krishna consciousness. Like in the Bhagavatam and also in Lord Chaitanya's time, there were households such as Ramananda Roy and other personalities who actually did have quite a lot of opulence, but because they utilised it properly, then they remain unaffected by that. So could we say that also that facilities there within our society for some household devotees who will have opulence and facility, as long as they use it in Krishna service, then they'll remain.
Well, Ramananda Roy and even more Pundarik Vidyanidhi. The thing is that they're eternal associates of Krishna, Lord Chaitanya. And actually, it's totally irrelevant to them. The wealth they had was irrelevant. In other words, they were on such a high level of spiritual life that they sort of glided through their material situation without much interest in it, ultimately. So one thing is that when we see the behavior or the examples, it's said, don't imitate but follow. So, for example, Prabhupada says regarding Ramananda Roy, no one can imitate Ramananda Roy. We have to follow Ramananda Roy's teachings, but we can't imitate him. So, it's like Lord Shiva. You can't imitate Lord Shiva and drink an ocean of poison, but you should follow his instructions. Similarly, no one can bathe beautiful young girls and remain unaffected, but you can follow Ramananda Roy's instructions. In the same way, to see the example of wealthiness of such persons and to try to imitate them may lead to fall Just like we saw that in our spiritual masters, after Srila Prabhupada's disappearance, there were so many similarities in the way they received certain amounts of worship. So, but the result is that there was some effect upon them. So generally we have to really understand our own level of Krishna consciousness. And if we try to do as others did, who were far more advanced, we may fall down. Therefore, it is better, if one has a lot of wealth, then one should take a lot of guidance on how to use that wealth. And it's not easy to remain unaffected. In other words, Ramananda Roy is Lalita, is Vishaka, and Pundarik Vidyanidhi, also both of these persons are eternal associates. They just didn't become affected. But where is a wealthy person who doesn't become affected? I know some wealthy devotees in this movement, and they frankly admit to me that it is affecting. They admit it. It's an obstacle. It makes one independent. of authority, because one considers, I have wealth, I don't need to depend. And it does so many things. That doesn't mean to say that it's cannot be used in Krishna service. It can. I don't ever tell these people to just give up all their wealth. A lot of them seek my advice. And I tell them to make more wealth. I tell them like that, please make more wealth. Because I also know their natures. And I know that they're not fully ready yet to. But they work very carefully under senior authorities. I'm thinking of a number of individuals. And they don't, they very much take guidance and advice on how to proceed.
And the other question was that for people that are coming along, for them to think of giving up everything sometimes is too much.
We're preaching in this room. This is Srimad Bhagavatam. This is not Sunday feast lecture. On the Sunday feast lecture, we don't speak like this in the same way. Neither did Srila Prabhupada. If you listen to the lectures that he gives, according to the audience, he speaks appropriately. So the idea here is that most people who come to the Srimad Bhagavatam class, they want to do anything they have to do to fully surrender to Krishna. So we should speak accordingly. But to the people who come on the Sunday feast lecture, we're just telling them that, Krishna is God, and you have all relationship with Krishna. We keep it in a very simple way, because if they hear this lecture, they will be scared away. In fact, some of the people sitting here are getting scared away. So, but what can be done? Because the lecture has to be given in such a way to encourage those who are most sincere. It has to be like that, to encourage those who are most sincere. Prabhupada said, 1 moon. I'm looking for 1 moon. He said, the Krishna Consciousness movement should, be a standard of pure devotion. He said, even if we don't have many followers, it doesn't matter. At least people will know this is the standard. Just like Karl Prabhu was telling me how the people are now appreciating in Christchurch and all over New Zealand, they're appreciating the Hare Krishna movement. They wear their robes, they go out and chant Hare Krishna, they do prasadam distribution, they distribute their books. That we have a standard that people are seeing and starting to respect. So it's very important that we maintain a strict standard and that the preachers preach, at least to the devotees, in a very strict and clear way. Then if someone cannot follow to that standard, they should be humble enough and acknowledge that, rather than creating a philosophy to justify it. There's no need to justify it, because you'll never make advancement if you try to justify it. If we, to whatever degree we cannot surrender to Krishna, we should acknowledge it and beg the Vaishnavas, please help me to come to the standard. Otherwise, we'll never make advancement. At least this is any shortcoming that I observe in myself. I go to my godbrothers and I discuss, this is the shortcoming. What should I do to clear it? And that's why I have very close friendships with the best devotees. Because I'm like that and they're like that. That's why I have the friends I have, at least that I pick. And I like them because the principle is that nothing is too sacred, that we can't discuss it to get clear of all problems so that we can go back home back to God.
Maharaj, there's so many towns and centres around all over the world that grihastas are into this, they're sort of just making ends meet around the temple. They're not really, they're working or they're doing so many things. Isn't it better that grihastas actually go out and preach? They have a centre somewhere.
If they could, that was Prabhupada's idea. He just told everybody who got married to go out and open the center. Then he did do that, and everybody was doing it for a while. They did do it. So that is a very good proposal. It just requires a tremendous amount of determination and faith. There's not a householder who cannot do that if they are willing to really depend on Guru and Krishna. But it requires dependence on Guru and Krishna completely. Food to shelter, you have to take a lot of shelter to do this. Yes, it would be very good. But it's not easy. And if one is not able to do that, then he has to do some alternative thing. But as you say, then he becomes just concerned so much with how to make ends meet. I mean, if you go out and open a center, you'll still be concerned with how to make ends meet, but at least the ends will be a temple and the Sunday feast and Harinam and all the other things. And Krishna will probably help you. You'll have a little center and it will be successful. Few people will be coming. You know, you'll go through life. You look forward to going to Mayapur, just to the festival, meeting other devotees, and you'll be simple. No big deal, but it'll be nice. And that was the original mood that Prabhupada was in. People didn't seem to have all the problems they do these days.
It's just in a temple situation. You know, like when I came here, there was only 8 or 9 devotees, and now there's so many devotees, and all the service seems like all the service is taken care of, and a lot of the grihastas can sometimes find themselves everything they used to do, someone else is doing it.
Good point.
So I think it's better if they
Anyway, you're showing by your example, I think, right?
try.
So that's good. That's a good example to show. Let's get a brahmachari question.
Yeah, I was just going to ask, that's for the householders that they may have wealth, and you're talking about that. In this age, for most householders, the tendency to become affected by that wealth. In other words, we can't live up to the example of previous personalities who have already said. The same way as the brahmachari, we may see examples of the lifetime brahmacharis in the past, like Bhaktivedanta, when you talk about being. But isn't it like
We should try to follow their example as much as we can, as far as possible. A brahmachari's main business is to assist the sannyasi, to assist the spiritual master in his mission. So a spiritual master will tell a brahmachari, you go out and save the time. The brahmachari should just fix his mind. My business is to stay every morning, get up early, take a shower, chant lots of rounds, study, go out all day, and work for the temple. And he should think of nothing else in his mind. He'll be a good brahmachari. No problems. Brahmachari life is the best life. Just ask any household. You ask them, all be ready to confirm brahmachari life is the best life.
that sacrifice is sufficient to completely purify the heart?
All the things have to be done. Worship of the deity, chanting nicely, going to the Mayapur festival occasionally.
Yeah, it said that for the sage it's recommendable to go through the greenhouse restaurant.
It is.
Maybe some things.
I didn't find Prabhupada recommending that. Prabhupada told the Radharani brahmacharis, don't get married. He did not recommend that they get married. He said, don't get married. If you get married, so many problems are there. The wife will say, where's the house? Where's the saris? Where are my jewels? He did not recommend to our brahmacharis in the Radharani party that they should get married. He said if you cannot help it, then you get married and be Krishna conscious in household life. But we don't recommend to brahmacharis that you should go through household life. Why? If you can avoid it, it's so much better. But some won't. And then we tell them, then alright, then get a Krishna conscious wife. And do your duty as a householder. If you can be a Brahmin householder, very good, can preach Krishna consciousness full time. Actually, if someone wants to be a full-time preacher as a householder, they can do it very easily. There are so many preaching occasions they can take up. They can maintain household by preaching. It's austere and you have to live simply, but it can be done. And if you don't have that disposition, then earn wealth. Then if you're going to earn wealth, give 50% of your wealth. Everybody should act in a proper way according to their Really. And if you say it's hard to make, then just make more money. In other words, Kolavecha Sridhar gave 50% of his wealth, but look at how he lived. I mean, he had a little banana plantation, and he used to, give 50% for the worship of the Ganga, but he lived in a little hut. So if you say, well, I can't live in a hut, then you got to make more money. Just make more money. Work harder to make more money. Work very, very hard. That's what I tell people who are wealthy. I tell them, you should work so hard. If you have an ability to make money, work hard anything. And make a lot of money and then use it for Krishna. Very good. Nothing wrong with that.
Just on the point.
Making lots of money.
Oh, yeah. Like when I'm doing some movement and joining and that sort of stuff, and then I take supposedly like a step outside doing money. It seems as though, even though one is donating much money or whatever, it seems that the taste always being the full time the body remains. And so the taste are actually spending so much Lakshmi, which is very, very difficult for listening time.
You have to make up your mind though. With the help of Guru, you have to decide what's your duty going to be. Either you're going to be a full-time devotee and live very simply, or you're going to make a lot of money and give 50%.
It can't be compromised.
Well, you could try, then let your Guru guide you exactly on how to adjust it to it. It can be. Then he should guide you. Strictly guide you, and you have to follow his instruction. And one thing about the Guru's guidance, in my opinion, is that Gurus should give guidance to the disciples along with the senior devotees who know the person. Because too often, you see, the person shows the best side to the Guru, and all the other sides are shown the rest of the year. So the best thing is that when a Guru guides someone, that they should guide them along with the persons who have to work with those people. Because then the real picture will come out clear. So we should not just get guided by Guru, we should get guided by Guru and Sadhu. Gurus should take the help of the sadhus to guide the disciple. And what is the, what is the example? Srila Prabhupada. Rarely did Prabhupada ever directly guide anyone. He might have guided 30, 40 people in this whole movement personally. He guided the GBCs, he guided the sannyasis, and maybe a few others. Every single other person was guided through the temple president. Nobody was guided directly by Prabhupada. Now every guru wants to guide their disciple, every disciple wants to be guided by their guru, and nobody has any faith in the temple president, and they do away with temple presidents. Not in my zone, they're not going to do away with temple presidents. Say that. I'm following Prabhupada. We have councils, but we don't do away with temple presidents. And I don't want to deal with disciples who don't want to follow the temple presidents. Then I just don't deal with them. It's no use, because they will never get any advancement, because the principle is not being understood of sadhu sangha. They don't understand how to associate with sadhus. They don't take association with their god brothers, god sisters, cousins, whatever they are, uncles. We have to live together as a group. When one devotee was a disciple of Prabhupada, couldn't work with anyone else. I remember in 1977, Prabhupada told him, I know that you will not remain out. And sure enough, this devotee left. Because Prabhupada said, because you have never been able to work with others. You have never worked under anyone else. You could only accept my instruction. This is a very dangerous position. When a disciple is in the way, we can only accept his guru's instruction. I personally try to accept the instructions of my god brothers. If my god brothers don't approve of my activities, I don't do those activities. I have at least 6, 7, 8 people, and they all know each other, and I know what, and it's combinedly they have to approve of my activities, or I don't do those things. I don't trust myself, and I don't trust that I'm just taking direction from God. I want the guidance of those who know me. So I say that it's better for devotees not simply to be guided by their guru, but to be guided by the guru and the senior persons, hopefully as a temple president and other senior people who know this person very well they should all sit together and say, but Prabhu, you know, this, and this, tell your Guru the facts. This is the way this is, what about this, what about this? Then the Guru has to sit there and hear the whole thing and actually face it. This is the way you are. It's not that you're just a little angel, you know, with silver wings, and everything's fine. Exactly what you're telling is the whole story. It doesn't come out, the whole story. The whole story comes out the other 350 days of the year when the Guru's not around. That's the full picture. So better that because we're not trying to fool anyone. Who are we trying to put something over? We're trying to get free so that we can surrender to Krishna. I mean, we want to join Lord Chaitanya's eternal entourage. We don't want to stay in this miserable world forever, doing our duties here. No, we want to get into the nectar of Nam Sankirtan. So the more we can get freed from all of these unwanted things, the better. And those who can help us are welcome. Last question. We've got one more question. Go ahead, Jim.
It's alright. Oh, well, yeah, so I was just kind of using it, right? And I had a bank book. And,
what did you do? You had a big
bank book.
A bank book.
Yeah, because I was getting benefit every week. And,
Something from the government?
yeah. And I lost it.
You lost the bank book or the money that
I
comes out?
lost the bank book.
Get another bank book.
I started thinking, you know, is Krishna taking it away? Because to get it back, it's such a valuable deal. Because to get it back would take a lot of phone calls, a lot of endeavour and so forth. So I was sort of thinking, you know, did Krishna take it away so I could surrender more and do more books and make money that way?
Ask the temple president.
Yeah.
He'll tell you.
If I can find it, give me the money.
That's what I do more books.
Okay. Temple president can answer. One last question.
I have one brahmachari friend, and he said to me, I'm independent now.
He did.
So I thought he was a fool.
Sounds like. You should tell him to get married. But actually, I take those words back. Because the worst householder is an independent householder. So actually, you should tell him that you got to sit down and talk more seriously. Because this is a very dangerous thing. The best brahmachari, grihasta, vanaprastha, or sannyasi is a dependent person. Not financially dependent, because I don't believe householders are best off financially dependent unless they're Brahmins being supported by the temple. But spiritually, they should be totally dependent. Totally dependent. We should not do anything without superior guidance. That's our philosophy. That is our philosophy, and it's being lost now.
So it wasn't, just so that I to this point, I'm trying to get some clarification, it wasn't as though Bhaktivedanta told certain disciples to actually become the acharyas. That was my understanding anyway. I mean, I don't know that that's...
No, he formed it, no, he didn't make a chart. He formed the GBC, but they didn't form the GBC. Bhaktisiddhanta Saraswati ordered the GBC be formed, but they didn't form it.
I was trying to get to the point that certain individuals went forth by their desire and were able to please, short driver, that there was no
because the general principle is that a disciple, especially a sannyasi, after the departure of his guru, he himself becomes a guru. That's the general principle. And he should get the blessings of the Vaishnavas. And the Vaishnavas give their blessings in a organized way through a GBC. So that's the system, that generally, after the departure of the spiritual master, those who are his disciples, especially sannyasis, not necessarily sannyasis, but especially sannyasis, they themselves can become guru. But they should get the blessings of the Vaishnavas. So this is the system that actually, this is a standard system, and Prabhupada has nicely established it. And I asked Prabhupada, I was the secretary, and I asked him, after he had suggested some people, he appointed some people who would start initiating, even in his presence. They were Ritvik, they were just initiating on his behalf. And he said after they will act as normal gurus. And then I suggested someone else who was a sannyasi. I said, why don't we add him? He said, let him first become qualified. So it wasn't automatically that just because you're a sannyasi or a disciple, if your guru leaves, you're qualified. No. He said, first of all, because this person was having some problems, so he said he should be rectified first. And then if you all agree, so then the GBC approves, then he can do it. But Prabhupada made it very clear what system should be followed. If there was any defect after Prabhupada's departure, it was only in the sense that there was a feeling of exclusivity. But actually there wasn't, because the number was increased immediately. It was not as if those 11 people said, okay, that's it, and nobody else. They did increase. They were too restrictive. That was perhaps a defect. Although some people I speak to sometimes say, now it's not enough restricted. But the defect was in any case that it was too restricted. But it was not that nobody increased. The number immediately was increased. 2 more people were added, 2 more people were added. Every year there was 1, 2 people being added. Now we have so many gurus, initiating gurus in our society. Okay, I went too long. Anyway, these are just my opinions. You don't have to follow. Just wait for the next sannyasi to come through. They'll give you their view, and then you just pick the one that... That's the opulence of our society. It's someone for everybody. So thank you very much.